Now there is finally official talk for a promotion relegation concept in Test cricket. And obviously this is a popular concept in football or soccer, whatever you call it. Think of the Premier League, for example. We don't have it in Australia quite yet, but think of the Premier League, for example. This is quite a popular concept of having a team go down and playing weaker teams, and the best team from that week coming up playing the stronger teams. Now look, there are pros and cons to this for me. Is this going to maybe get more people interested in Test cricket? I think it will. I think people like the idea of actually playing like for a league table. I think that might get a few more fans from other sports interested perhaps. But what I do worry is, and it's not the exact same because there is promotion and relegation, but is this just a redefined version of, say, the Super League we saw in football a few years ago where, you know, the English and Spanish and Italian teams were going to run off create their own league? Again, this isn't the exact same with promotion and relegation, but I do just see this as the main three teams, Australia, India, England, disguising their own Super League with maybe one promotion and relegation team, ignoring the fact that it's just them three having a monopoly competing for the title every year. So what do you think of promotion and relegation Test cricket? Is this a possibility or is this another bad idea?
I mean, I think you've got a valid concern. I mean, of course, this debate came up because, you know, Australia and India just played a great series. And, you know, we had people saying, oh, they should really be playing each other more often, which, to be honest, like, yeah, fair enough. Why wouldn't we want them playing more often? You know, it's the best teams in the world. We do want them to play more. But, but again, like, yeah, like you mentioned it, one of my concerns is, you know, this hypothetical, if there is this hypothetical promotion relegation, what are we going to do with this second league? I mean, if there's this bottom dwelling list of, like, you know, test teams, you know, what's going to happen to, you know, the bottom teams in that second division? Are they just going to be left there to rot and to just sort of suffer, get kicked around? And again, depending on how this system's set up, again, we don't have any ideas. It's all just talk. But, you know, if there's a team seesawing between the top and the bottom, you know, is that really much better than, you know, the standard future tours system? You know, the way where they just book in and just sort of go. I mean, hypothetically, like, if that's Ireland, like, is it going to do Ireland any better if they're playing England every couple of years and then they're back down to playing the West Indies and back to playing, you know, like these weaker nations? And I just, it's something that I think the ICC really has to consider because, I mean, I'm an ice hockey fan. We have a promotion relegation system for our international teams too. Um, and one thing I noticed is that teams get stuck and they just sort of just stagnate. And obviously in international sports, this isn't like the Premier League or like the Championship where if you've got the money, you can buy some players or you can develop young players and sort of, you know, get up after a couple of years. This is international sports. You don't know how long there's going to be until you've got, you know, the next national hero coming up the ranks in first class cricket. So I don't know. It's just a concept that while I've got my full support of it, I just need the ICC to be fully confident that they can do this in a way that doesn't, you know, jeopardize the future of cricket.
Absolutely. Now that's basically my opinion on it as well. Just another thing I want to focus on is, like I mentioned earlier, promotion relegation most famous in the European football leagues. We use the Premier League as an example. In the Premier League, if you get promoted, they'll give you like £60 million and you can go and buy these players from other Premier League clubs, from other leagues, like Italian, Spanish leagues, whatever. That's not how Test cricket works. Like, sure, you get promoted in Test cricket. You can't go and buy other players. That's not how Test cricket is. That's not how international cricket works. So that's just my main concern is, like, if let's say West Indies, who I think would probably start second tier, let's say West Indies get promoted to the first tier, they can't go and buy Steve Smith. They can't go and buy Joe Root. That's not how Test cricket works. So what I'm just wondering is this just going to be up, down, like yo-yo clubs, with the main three, England, Australia, India, just benefiting, while these smaller clubs either stay stuck in second tier and probably go to financial ruins, or just bounce up and down and not really, you know, doing anything significant?
Yeah, and that's exactly the same concern I have. I mean, yeah, like you said, there is no buying players. There is it's wait and develop, and you could argue maybe there is that incentive to develop to put more focus into domestic cricket, and maybe there's a chance you'll get the next hero who takes your nation to the first tier. But there's got to be some sort of big reward for getting to the first tier. And again, I'm not 100% sure if, you know, getting into that first tier will be worth it, especially if it's just going to be, again, those big free nations just sort of, you know, playing for the same title every time. So not to say that we don't have upset stories, like upsets can happen, but in cricket, it's just a system that will take a lot of work in order to properly work and to properly benefit everyone for the better of the sport.
Absolutely. I just listened to obviously, the legends who came before these current players and what their thoughts are. I've saw West Indies legend Clive Lloyd. He's not a fan. Former England bowler Stephen Finn. I don't think he's a big fan either. But I just want to take the attention to one man, Michael Holding, and I think he kind of agrees with us on this. I saw him say, if there is no promotion and relegation, which again there could be, but if there's no promotion and relegation, the top division will just keep making all the money. The bottom division will get poorer and teams will disappear. Maybe that is what they want. Now, again, there could be promotion and relegation. We're kind of in the dark on that. But look, he's right. Again, firstly, if there's no promotion and relegation, then what are we doing? What's the point? But even if there is promotion and relegation, I still feel we could get stuck in that same loop where, again, just yo-yo clubs going up and down, which, that's not going to help, like, West Indies. That's not going to help Ireland. That's not going to help Bangladesh, or I think we'll probably start second here. That's not going to help any of these nations. And I just worry, again, like, sure, the test matches we watch between Australia and India and England, and even other teams like South Africa, I love watching test match against them. New Zealand, obviously, have that rivalry. That'll be great from a consumer's perspective. But sometimes you have to look past the consumer's perspective and work out, is this what the players want? Is this what the teams want? And is this what the teams need? And I'm just not sure if, outside of your main three, is this what the teams need? But again, I could be wrong. Look, this is still early stages. We're not officially happening. It's not happening tomorrow. It's probably not even happening next year. We're still a few years away from this at least, if it was to happen. But I'm just a bit concerned on if it's the right choice for the lower clubs, lower teams.
Yeah, and again, I think something you have to mention is if we're going to be playing the teams in our league exclusively, are we not going to get stale of playing India in a five-test series again for the first time in 2 years? Or are we not going to? Not that the Ashes ever get stale, but if we're going to be playing them that frequently, is maybe are we going to lose the value of these historic rivalries? And obviously, obviously, you mentioned we've got a bit of a rivalry with South Africa now. They really don't like playing us since the incident in 2017, and we've always had that small rivalry with New Zealand. So are we sort of diluting the history of the game if we're playing exclusively the big rivals? Because again, what makes those series special is how infrequently they happen. I mean, think back the last time we played India, well, it was 2021 or 2022, and obviously we had the really big grand series, the one that came down to that tested the Gabba. Think back to 2018 when we had probably a weaker squad coming off of the sandpaper incident, and India were basically just pushing us around. Those series and those storylines don't happen if we're playing each other really frequently, and I think a series like that could just dilute the history of the game, and it just really make for some pretty boring stock standard matchups.
Yeah, look, you used India as an example of the specialness there is when we only play them once every 2 years or 2.5 years or whatever. I'll use another one. I'll use England. I'll use the Ashes. I love watching the Ashes. I'll focus on men's Ashes, obviously. I know the women's Ashes, so not now. We'll focus on the men's Ashes here. Obviously, like that run out with Bairstow. How good was that? How fun was that? Technically, it was a draw, but we held on to the Ashes. How good was that watching that series in England? Now they're coming back here in November of this year, and we're going to get to watch them, and they're going to finally be able to see if they can get their revenge with Bazball on us. If we were playing them every year, would it be the same? Would it even matter if we beat them in a test series, knowing they can just get us back next year? Or maybe, probably wouldn't happen twice in a year, but we're going to be playing these teams so much more frequently. You just have to wonder, like, is there a point to these rivalries anymore? Because, again, if you give the people too much of the same thing, they're going to get bored. I'll never get bored of the Ashes with its current system, with 2 years, 2.5 years. But if it was happening every year, maybe I would. Maybe I'd tune out. But that's just me. So I'm not sure if that's a concern you have as well, but that's just something I'm a bit worried about.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, of course, what makes the Ashes so special is it's this history around it, and we don't meet often. Again, it's only once every 2.5 years. Obviously, 4 years between series at home. Uh, like there's a big gap between these things, and again, these big rivalries, like I said, would be diluted if we're playing each other so often. I mean, it's what makes it special. It's the fact that this is our first time seeing each other in a while, and it's our chance to get back at them. And if we're playing each other, knowing what we're seeing each other in, again in 6 months, 7 months, maybe a year, then it's just sort of loses you know, it loses the special touch that it has, especially the with the history it's got, and the feel of wanting to get back. It doesn't really exist if you're going to get back to each other in only a few months in Test cricket, because a few months in Test cricket is not a long time at all.